Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
My good friend, the founder of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, Normal. Give it up!
Thank you, Vivian and the Hemp Fest. What a wonderful celebration of personal freedom. It's fantastic to be here. Let me start off by being honest with you. I smoke pot and I like it a lot. Okay? Let's get that. I first smoked marijuana in 1965 when I was a freshman at Georgetown Law School. And I've been a regular marijuana smoker ever since. And I'm here to say there's absolutely nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults, regardless of why you smoke it. And it should be none of the government's business whether we smoke or why we smoke. Normal is the marijuana smokers lobby in America. We have been now for 4 decades. We founded the organization in 1970. We favor the elimination of all penalties for the responsible use of marijuana. We also favor the establishment of a legally regulated market, and you good folks here in Washington are going to have a chance to vote on an initiative like that in November. You may well be the first state to actually fully legalize marijuana in this country.
Let's make it happen!
And we also favor personal cultivation. That is, that consumers should have the right to grow their own marijuana, so that if the industry tries to charge us too much, or if the marijuana isn't good quality, or if it's not convenient, screw them. We will grow our own, just like we do now. Now, what is important, I think, is that for those of us who smoke marijuana to get up, stand up, light up, and let the world know how we feel. We must come out of the closet and demand our rights. We have to do that for a number of reasons. First, we have to overcome a negative stereotype that many older Americans still have about marijuana smokers. We need to demonstrate that marijuana smokers are just average Americans who work hard, who raise families, and who pay taxes, and who contribute in a positive way to their communities. We are not criminals, and we should not be treated like criminals.
Amen.
Just as gays and lesbians demonstrated over the last 2 or 3 decades, they won their rights in this country largely by the courageous ability and willingness of a lot of people to come out of the closet, to overcome a negative stereotype. Well, smokers have to do the same thing. So please, there's nothing wrong with smoking pot. Don't be afraid to be identified as a pot smoker, and in fact, get involved politically. Don't vote for a candidate for public office who wants to treat you like a criminal. Over 30 million Americans smoked pot just in the last year. If we would simply take that pledge to stop voting for people that wanted to treat us like criminals, we will change these laws in the next couple of election cycles. Now, very briefly, prohibition is a failed public policy for 2 or 3 basic reasons. One is, we waste $10 billion a year chasing and arresting and prosecuting marijuana smokers. We arrest 850,000 people a year in this country for marijuana offenses. Another marijuana smoker is arrested every 38 seconds in America. We've arrested 20 million marijuana smokers just since 1965. So for Christ's sake, just for that reason, let's move it aside. But there's even a conceptual reason. Most Americans agree the government has no business coming into our house to know what books we read, to know what music we listen to, or how we conduct ourselves in the privacy of the bedroom. Well, neither do they have any business coming into our house to know whether we drank alcohol or smoke marijuana when we relax in the evening. It is simply none of their business.
Why is it illegal? You were going to say.
So, where does that leave us? You folks are on the verge of changing policy that's been in place for 75 years. Either Colorado, California, Washington, Oregon, or Massachusetts, almost certainly one of those states, maybe more, are going to fully legalize marijuana in November of 2012. You people have an excellent chance to do that. You will change the world if you help us accomplish that. And in the end, it is important to keep in mind, we're only incidentally talking about marijuana. We're really talking about personal freedom. So get up, light up, support NORML, and let's restore a measure of personal freedom to the lives of tens of millions of marijuana smokers. Thank you.
Keith Straub from NORML, the founder of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
It's a little song for the drug war. War's over. When's everybody gonna learn? War's over. Till then we're bound to burn. War's over. Unless you're caught up in a lie. War's over. So let's all get high. Thousands upon thousands am I dead. These words just did not sink in their head. So many give, yet so many more them take. Until this oven turn off, it's just a have to bake. War's over. When's everybody gonna learn? War's over. Till then we're bound to burn. War's over. Unless you're caught up in that lie, that same old lie. War's over. So for God's sake, let's get high. So what about it? Ain't you heard the story yet? You're going to help to change it or add to the debt. I'm getting way deep concerned and it ain't no lie. We all come together soon or we all bound to die. War's over. Don't you be acting dumb. War's over. 'Cause there ain't nowhere to run. War's over. Unless you're caught up in a lie, that same old lie. War's over. So come on, let's get high.
And thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for being here. My God, look at all of you. This is fantastic. It's taken a long time, but we're finally at this point. I work with Voter Power, manage their Portland Patient Resource Center. I'm also working with the Oregon Marijuana Policy Initiative, one of the 3 legalization initiatives currently circulating in this state. 3 chances, 3 opportunities to change the world. Just getting one of those on the ballot will send a message across the country. Pass one, and we've changed everything. And it's all up to us, and we can make it happen. I started working in this state years ago. My good friend Paul Stanford and John Sajo and I and a lot of other people put something called the Oregon Marijuana Initiative on the ballot back in 1986. It was fantastic. And you know, back then, this was just a dream. No one ever believed that we'd have millions of people around the country safe because they're medical cannabis patients in legal states like the state of Oregon. We never dreamed it could happen, and it did, because we've never stopped trying. We've never stopped believing. And that's what it's all about. If you're a registered voter, and you have not yet signed the initiatives, do it now. Only sign once, but sign each of those initiatives that one time. If you're not a registered voter, register. And if you're not a registered voter because you're too young, thank you for being here. Pick up information. Go to these tables. Go to the nonprofits. Get their information. Get their literature. You're here to learn, my friends. Because if this were an anti-nuclear demonstration, if this were about healthcare, the environment, and the economy, anything else, we'd have newspapers filled with pictures of you and how proud they are that you're taking an interest in politics, taking an interest in making social change. And instead, we're going to get shots of kids smoking joints. But yo, the joint is not the point. We got to fight for our right to party, and that means we need you to be educated. We need you to educate your parents and your friends. Get the literature, get this information. It's never too young to start being serious about making this a better world. And that's what this is all about. This is a movement powered by love. Oh, and it's also powered by money. You'll see people around gathering donations to a lot of great groups here, the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, which is the primary sponsor, and of course all the others, Oregon Normal and such. Give. You bought that glass piece, it's great, you got an extra $5 left over. Donate it to a good cause, because that's how this kind of stuff happens. That's how this kind of stuff happens. I want to thank all of you and all the people who make this possible, because this is how change happens. You're beautiful. Thank you.
Doug McVeigh from Voter Power's Patient Resource Center and also the Oregon Marijuana Policy Initiative. And Doug's right, the joint's not the point, but for every joint that dies, a roach is born. And that's the truth.
In between the blues, there are good days and bad days, with everything and nothing to lose. While the setting sun never sits, and the night has no limits. The void between freedom and free, dealing with the unnatural reality. A need to see, a need to be. Grass fire, my DNA needs THC.
Grass fire in a world that yearns. That's the way this fire burns. Like a grass fire.
In the unnatural society, been trying to maintain, while the sane appear to be clearly insane, with no way to explain. Outlasting the great lie, a sparking spark does my mind. Grass fire, pulling the sky, breathing in Sativa's design. Dealing with the unnatural reality. A need to see, a need to be. Grassfire, my DNA needs THC. Dreaming of long times past, all that those times brought. Looking to the heart of tomorrow. Grassfire. Any world that yearns, that's the way this fire burns.
The story of Harry Anslinger's role in the prohibition of marijuana and the criminalization of marijuana users is a very interesting story. It's almost comical when you go back and you read some of the newspaper accounts and some of the rhetoric surrounding the prohibition of marijuana to see these incredibly exaggerated assertions, such as that marijuana would take normal people upon smoking it and make them assassins overnight, or that inevitably it would lead to insanity, in a larger sense, to debauchery and immorality. What Anslinger did is basically sort of assemble all these forces and kind of harness all this energy against marijuana as the assassin of youth and use it as the tool for promoting the adoption of the Uniform Narcotic Drug Act. And it worked.
A few years later, Anslinger would achieve his ultimate goal, the passage of the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937.
The Marijuana Tax Act was passed at the national level in 1937. And that the story about the prohibition of marijuana was basically a story emerging in the 1930s and largely driven by Harry Anslinger.
New immigrant populations were changing the face of American society, and alcohol prohibition had given rise to organized crime and increased violence. Anslinger played the race card and the fear card, as politicians so often have in America, and it worked.
50% of the violent crimes committed in districts occupied by Mexicans, Greeks, Turks, Filipinos, Spaniards, Latin Americans, and Negroes may be traced to the use of marijuana. I believe in some cases one cigarette might develop a homicidal mania, probably to kill his brother. If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster marijuana, he would drop dead of fright. Harry J. Anslinger.
To learn more and to obtain a free copy of the informational booklet, Marijuana, It's Time for a Conversation, please visit marijuanaconversation.org.
Long ago, when these ancient Grecian temples were new, hemp was already old in the service of mankind. For thousands of years even then, this plant had been grown for cordage and coarse cloth in China and elsewhere in the East. For centuries prior to about 1850, all the ships that sailed the western seas were rigged with hempen rope and sails. For the sailor, no less than the hangman, hemp was indispensable. A 44-gun frigate, like our cherished old Ironsides, took over 60 tons of hemp for rigging. Including an anchor cable 25 inches in circumference. The Conestoga wagons and prairie schooners of pioneer days were covered with hempen canvas. Indeed, the very word canvas comes from the Arabic word for hemp. In those days, hemp was an important crop in Kentucky and Missouri. Then came cheaper imported fibers for cordage, like jute, sisal, and manila hemp, and the culture of hemp in America declined. But now, with Philippine and East Indian sources of hemp in the hands of the Japanese, and shipment of jute from India curtailed, American hemp must meet the needs of our Army and Navy as well as of our industries. In 1942, patriotic farmers, at the government's request, planted 36,000 acres of seed hemp, an increase of several thousand%. The goal for 1943 is 50,000 acres of seed hemp. In Kentucky, much of the seed hemp acreage is on river bottom land such as this, along the Kentucky River Gorge. Some of these fields are inaccessible except by boat. Thus, plans are afoot for a great expansion of the hemp industry as a part of the war program. This film is designed to tell farmers how to handle this ancient crop, now little known outside Kentucky and Wisconsin. This is hemp seed. Be careful how you use it. For to grow hemp legally, you must have a federal registration and tax stamp. This is provided for in your contract. Ask your AAA committeeman or your county agent about it. Don't forget, hemp demands a rich, well-drained soil such as is found here in the bluegrass region of Kentucky or in central Wisconsin. It must be loose and rich in organic matter. Poor soils won't do. Soil that will grow good corn will usually grow hemp. Hemp is not hard on the soil. In Kentucky, it has been grown for several years on the same ground, though this practice is not recommended. A dense and shady crop, hemp tends to choke out weeds. Here's a Canada thistle that couldn't stand the competition. Dead as a dodo. Thus, hemp leaves the ground in good condition for the following crop. For fiber, hemp should be sown 5 pecks to the acre. With drill, the closer the rows, the better. These rows are spaced about 4 inches. This hemp has been broadcast. Either way, it should be sown thick enough to grow a slender stalk. Here's an ideal stand. The right height to be harvested easily, thick enough to grow slender stalks that are easy to cut and process. Stalks like these here on the left, they yield the most fiber and the best. Those on the right are too coarse and woody. For seed, hemp is planted in hills like corn, sometimes by hand. Hemp is a dioecious plant. The female flower is inconspicuous, but the male flower is easily spotted. In seed production, after the pollen has been shed, these male plants are cut out. These are the seeds on a female plant. Hemp for fiber is ready to harvest when the pollen is shedding and the leaves are falling. In Kentucky, hemp harvest comes in August. Here, the old standby has been the self-rake reaper, which has been used for a generation or more. Hemp grows so luxuriantly in Kentucky that harvesting is sometimes difficult, which may account for the popularity of the self-rake with its lateral stroke. A modified rice binder has been used to some extent. This machine works well in average hemp. Recently, the improved hemp harvester, used for many years in Wisconsin, has been introduced in Kentucky. This machine spreads the hemp in a continuous swath. It is a far cry from this fast and efficient modern harvester to the Armstrong model of yore. But here's one kind of harvester, at least, that doesn't stall in the heaviest hemp. In Kentucky, hand cutting is practiced in opening fields for the machines. In Kentucky, hemp is shucked as soon as safe after cutting, to be spread out for retting later in the fall. In Wisconsin, hemp is harvested in September. Here, the hemp harvester with automatic spreader is standard equipment. Note how smoothly the rotating apron lays the swath preparatory to retting. Here it is a common and essential practice to leave headlands around hemp fields. These strips may be planted to other crops, preferably small grain. Thus, the harvester has room to make its first round without preparatory hand cutting. Here the machine is running over corn stubble. When the cutter bar is much shorter than the hemp is tall, overlapping occurs. Not so good for retting. The standard cut is 8 to 9 feet. The length of time hemp is left on the ground to ret depends on the weather. The swaths must be turned to get a uniform ret. When the woody core breaks away readily, like this, the hemp is about ready to take up and bind into bundles. Well-retted hemp is light to dark gray. The fiber tends to pull away from the stalk. The presence of stalks in the bowstring stage indicates that retting is well underway. When hemp is short or tangled, or when the ground is too wet for machines, it is bound by hand. A wooden buck is used. Twine will do for tying, but the hemp itself makes a good band. When conditions are favorable, the pickup binder is commonly used. The swath should lie smooth and even with stalks parallel. The picker won't work well in tangled hemp. After binding, hemp is shucked as soon as possible to stop further retting. In 1942, 14,000 acres of fiber hemp were harvested in the United States. The goal for 1943 is 300,000 acres. Thus, hemp, Cannabis sativa, the old standby cordage fiber, is staging a strong comeback. This is Kentucky hemp going into the dryer of a mill at Versailles. In the old days, breaking was done by hand, one of the hardest jobs known to man. Now the power breaker makes quick work of it. Spinning American hemp into rope yarn or twine in the old Kentucky River Mill at Frankfort, Kentucky. Another pioneer plant that has been making cordage for more than a century. such plants will presently be turning out products spun from American-grown hemp. Twine of various kinds for tying, winding armatures, and upholsterers' work. Rope for marine rig.
How you doing, Seattle? I can't imagine a better group that I would rather have on my side, so I want to thank you so much. I am from Ohio, and we've got a few good things beginning in Ohio. Of course, I've been working on this for a long time. But we have a couple different ballot initiatives going on, or attempting to go on, that we're gathering signatures for. And then we also have a medical marijuana bill that I have personally helped write. My whole life I have not been heard. When I was a little girl, I couldn't speak until I was 5. I finally found my voice. You guys have given me the courage to find my voice. I have a laundry list of things going on with my body, but let me first give you a little background on Tanya. Tanya Davis does not have a criminal record. Tanya Davis is not a drug addict. Tanya Davis has just found out that I have massive calcium deposits that are on my brain. 2 weeks ago, I was hospitalized. So the laundry list don't even matter anymore. You know, I got all past that. I've learned to deal with that. But the massive calcium deposits on my brain, it's not like I have cancer and I can go have chemotherapy and they'll take it away. My calcium deposits are causing severe brain damage. And before anyone makes any comments, no, I have never done methamphetamine. So that is not the cause. I just found out that causes crystallization or something. Someone made a smart-ass remark, so. But I am not about all that. What I am about is fighting for my right to use this medicine. I choose to eat it. I am a medical marijuana patient, and I choose to eat my medicine. Okay, back to the calcium deposits on my brain. It's causing severe damage. And medical marijuana may be the only thing that can save my life or give my part of my brain that isn't covered in calcium a chance to protect itself. So I truly, with all my heart, if you need a reason to stand up for what's right, use me. Please use me. Because I believe I can be utilized in this movement in a positive way. And that's honestly, you know, when they told me that I was going to speak on this wonderful main stage, I was scared to death. But then I got to thinking in my mind, hell, I'm just talking to a few hundred of my own friends, 200,000 of my own friends. So that got over that a little bit, but I'm still scared to death, guys.
We love you! We love you!
I love you too. Marijuana might be the only thing that'll give me a fighting chance. And I'd be damned if our federal government is going to stop me from making this choice, because don't I deserve to have a fighting chance at life? You guys just gave me chill bumps, by the way. It's the right thing to do. Bottom line. And yes, so what if it makes you feel better? if you're not a patient. So fucking what? Thank you for having me in Seattle. Please go to, look me up, Tanya Davis, Ohio, on Facebook. Friend me. Find out what's going on with me, if you want. But I promise you that until I have my very last breath, I'm going to continue to fight. God bless you, and thank you.
Well, here's a little song that you might get along with, all about a natural seed growing wild by the side of the roadway. It's nature's a wonderful weed, been around so long it's hard to tell why anyone would think it's new. Love it or hate it, however you relate it, I'll leave that up to you. But isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. History's locked in a cardboard box and it's hard to take a look, with sidetrack frills and fantasies all written all over the book. Everybody tells you what to think and they've got their reasons why. You gotta pick reality up by the scruff of the neck and look it right in the eye. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Now the same people that are spreading the fear, the same people that scare me the most. You know, some of them look like they just as soon like they're hanging from a lamppost. They talk about what it does to your brain. Well, I just have to react, cause Hitler never touched this stuff, and that's an actual fact. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. George Washington was the father of our country, and he had a hemp plantation. Betsy Ross used it to make the flag that flew above the baby nation. They wrote their declarations on paper from that same hemp fiber press, and I don't know what they smoked when they were taking a break, but I got a pretty good guess. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Just might make you smile. Use a seed oil in your engine, it'll lubricate the miles. Glaucoma and chemotherapy, they say it smooths out the track. So next time you meet a cancer patient, ask them what they think about that. Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. I don't know why some people get so upset when you say to legalize it. They'd rather build more jails, arrest more people, and spread more crazy lies. It's like talking to a brick wall. You know, they just don't get the facts. I think they ought to try a little of that Betsy Ross. It just might help them relax. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. So I'll be on my way now. Guess I've taken just about enough of your time. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like my state of mind, but I got mine and you got yours. We give what we can take. So next time I need a breather, well, I might just take a little smoke break. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me.
Hempstock, thank you so much for being at this wonderful sacred event. It's always a demonstration of two things. It's a demonstration against the laws, and it's a demonstration that we can come together peacefully over and over and over with no problem. Because the only problem with the whole cannabis thing is the laws. Cannabis prohibition, as we know, is fixing a problem that doesn't exist. And we had HempFest this year. It was our 20th anniversary. It was a hard year. Initially, we had a 5-month battle with the city over the permit. They didn't want to give us a permit to have the event because they built a bridge, a sky bridge over the road and into the park. And it's a real big event with 250, I think, thousand people we had this year, 280,000, something like that. It's a big footprint event, and there's not a lot of places in Seattle that have Seattle Hemp Fest. And so we had a 5-month-long permit battle, and we sued the city of Seattle, and we won. And we won a third day. You know, the city said, you're too big for that park, and we said, give us a third day. And they says, well, why? And we said, because if you give us a third day, that Friday's going to pull enough off of Saturday that there's going to be enough room for everybody. It's going to work real smooth. And they said, well, where's your science behind that? And that's just a theory, and that's not proven. And when we won this year, we won the third day as well, and Friday was our most attended day, and Saturday was totally smooth. And we were right, and hopefully that's going to have an impact on next year. But every year is a struggle. Every year you got to fight for it. Freedom doesn't come easy. Comes a lot of responsibility. And, you know, at HempFest, one of the reasons we've gotten 20 years down the road with such a big event is that we try to take a safety-first approach. We're not always perfect, you know. We make mistakes. We aim to please. Our aim's not always perfect. But we try to learn from that. We try to always do a better job, and that's gotten us down the road. And here at Portland Hempstock, you know, I've watched this event grow and flower and blossom, you know. And wow, this year is just so beautiful. It's just such a beautiful location with such an airy ambiance. And like HempFest, it's right by the water energy, which is always good. And the weather couldn't be better. It's really beautiful. It's kind of perfect weather to grow a big stand of pot plants in. And it's always a blessing. I think often of Jack Hare, a friend of mine that I knew for a long time. Jack only missed one Seattle Hemp Fest, and that's the first year that he had his first stroke. But you know, most people with their career would have been over right then. It would have been done. And he would have had an incredibly illustrious career and all these books and his incredible work if he'd stopped right there. But not Jack Hare. It's not the kind of guy he was. He came right back the next year, and he came to HempFest, and you could hardly understand a word that he said after his first stroke. But he got up there on the stage in front of everybody. He was so driven, man. He wasn't going to let that stop him. And he was up there, and sometimes it'd take him 15 minutes to get his 5-minute speech in. And then Jack was back the next year, and he was speaking a little bit better. And he's back the next year, and he's speaking a little bit better. And pretty soon, man, Jack was speaking pretty good. And he was taking hemp oil every day, and he was taking Rick Simpson's pot oil every day. I know because I saw him take it. And everybody's got to die, but Jack Hare really bounced back, man, and he was one of the most driven people I've ever seen. Jack really, if you think about it, he sacrificed his life for the cannabis movement. He did. Because he literally went until he dropped, man. And when he dropped the first time, he got up and he kept going again. And the second time he dropped, he never got back up. But that guy is the true hemp warrior of all time, and he was a great friend. And it's always going to, you know, it's always going to be something we think about when we're at Hempstock, of how much we love Jack. And all the people at Seattle Hemp Fest this year on our main stage and a couple of our other stages, we had something really cool. We had these thin, transparent prayer flags on this really thin mesh cloth that had pictures of all of our fallen folks, of all the people in the HempFest family over 20 years who've passed away while they were working on the cause, while they were a member of HempFest, of the family. And we try to really honor all those people. And the thing that always strikes us is, man, I wish they could see how far we've gotten right now. They'd be so proud all of it, of everybody's work. So I want to thank all the volunteers with hemp stock and everybody. You know, there's a lot in the cannabis reform movement, in the legalization movement for the last 25 years that I've been actively involved in it. There's been this kind of kumbaya camaraderie, this kinship. Everybody got along and everything was rosy and wonderful because the nuts and bolts dynamics of legalization were so far down the road it was irrelevant at the time. You know, it's like would you argue about crossing a bridge while you still have 20 miles of woods to get through? Probably not. But when you get to that bridge, you're going to be arguing about how the best way to get across that thing is. We're at the bridge of legalization now. And man, are we arguing about it. And people have different initiatives out and different ideas on how it should happen. There's a lot of infighting within the movement. And it's just important for the community to remember that we're a part of this incredibly beautiful, artistic, peaceful, wonderful, gentle community. And all the activists have to realize that we represent this huge community that's bigger than us. And to try to keep as much unity in our community as we possibly can while we increase the peace. Thank you so much. SeattleHempFest.org. You may see me walking around. I got a book out this year called Protestival. Check it out. It's kind of cool. Thanks.
Well, what is cannabis? Cannabis, of course, is a medicine.
I think it's important to say that no medication is going to work for everybody all the time.
It's a specific for migraines, it's a specific for seizures.
The take on the plant is that it's symbiotic with the human.
If you can get something that's natural, that has literally zero side effects.
Yet it works as almost a ubiquitous inhibitor of a lot of systems in the brain.
The science is absolutely clear. The pharmaceuticalization of cannabis is just beyond the horizon.
I think it's easier for men to come out and say they support it because women have a lot more on the line. You know, if they're mothers, then they have their kids on the line.
So I tried it, and at first, it freaked me out. I had a few panic attacks.
We know that cannabis can prevent Alzheimer's, and if it can reduce all these ailments and keep your stress level low, that adds years to your life before you're even sick.
And so the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate fascist elite SOBs vilified the cannabis plant.
We're all grown up now. We're not in the closet anymore. We don't give a fuck what you think. We smoke marijuana.
But once you just let go with it and just be, it does so many things.
Consciousness opens the doors to perception, expands consciousness, and puts you in a receptive state.
I like to say when I give lectures, I start off by saying I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
Part of what we're doing with Oregon NORML is trying to maximize the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act and try to help the patients that truly need the medicine.
America's ready for a change in the marijuana laws. We're reached critical mass to change this critical mass.
Let's hope we can all live together in peace and harmony, love, and legalize marijuana, for God's sake.
Make some noise if you like weed. What about if you like marijuana? I love them both. It's time to legalize cannabis. You know, it used to be legal till 1937. The founding fathers, Jefferson, Washington, all those guys, they grew it, they smoked it. The Declaration of Independence was originally written on hemp paper. Cannabis, right? Better paper than trees. Better fabric than cotton. And you can smoke it and talk about shit. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Write that down. That's why John Hancock's signature is so big. Because he was high as hell. You feel me? You have to be high to fly a kite in a thunderstorm. Ben Franklin smoked a lot of weed. Right? The national bird is the bald eagle. What bird did Ben Franklin want for the national bird? The turkey. He's a stoner. Ben, the eagle, flies graceful, free, and majestic above the clouds. Yeah, but you can eat a turkey, brother. And there's John Hancock. Shit, I'll sign for that. I'm starving. Marijuana makes you a better cook anyway. I'm a good cook because I smoke weed. I don't have any money. I will invent shit to eat. Right? Right. If we got Bisquick and peanut butter, we got peanut butter rolls coming in 10 to 12 minutes. I looked in the pantry one time. We had marshmallows, margarine, and top ramen. I'm making ramen treats. Ramen treats. They were hella good. Don't use the flavor packet. That'll F it up. It's not savory. I know you guys know what Top Ramen is. Portland. Hell yeah. I had an upscale crowd one time. I said Top Ramen. They just stared at me. I had to break it down. I was like, well, y'all know Cup of Noodles, right? Uh-huh. Well, I can't afford a freaking cup. I'm just trying to get old noodles. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You ever been so poor you went through your couch again? If you had a couch. I go through my friends' couches. I just invite myself over. Steal money off the table. Brilliant. Work stone, not hard. That's what I always say. If you smoke a lot of weed, if marijuana is no longer a hobby, if it has become a lifestyle, you have to take steps. You have to be proactive like this. When it's time to renew my driver's license picture, I get high as hell. You feel me? I pull into the parking lot of the DMV, and I hotbox the shit out of my car, and then I go take my picture because I want them to think that I look like that all the goddamn time. Right? So when they pull me over, what seems to be the trouble? You can go, sir. You understand?
The feeling of something gone wrong. How do you define what you can't explain? In the dragging on, hunger gnaws on law, and in self-defense, law keeps gnawing back. Sometimes the thoughts don't know what to think, and where I've been doesn't remember a thing about me. Something strange going on. Everything that had unraveled, and now it's raveling back into all I thought I'd escape. And those places I don't want to go. Don't want, could care less about any of that. Not with its own need for a fix. Looking at what's been done, all I did was go along for the ride. In a shadowing of light, flung to the edge, collided with reality. And reality didn't even blink. Those dreams marked by scars. The rampaging question is, who would want to scar a dream? Maybe its scars need dreams too. Riding a shattering, a breaking into an echo of silence. That bitter taste looks for someone sweet. The feeling of something gone wrong. How do you define what you can't explain? In a shadowing of light, flung to the edge, collided with reality. And reality didn't even blink.
Al Capone and his gangster buddies weren't shooting each other with machine guns because they were drunk on the alcohol they were selling. They were shooting each other because of the profits associated with the distribution of alcohol, who gets to sell in what neighborhoods. And that in many ways mirrors a lot of the drug problems we have today. It's not the drugs themselves that are causing the violence. In fact, with marijuana, the most damage someone's going to likely do is to a bag of Doritos. It's a counterintuitive solution. That is to say, being tough is not the same as being effective, and very often it's the opposite of being effective. And so I liken the problem of prohibition to those Chinese finger cuffs, right? The straw tubes. You stick a finger in, and the tighter you pull, the more you pull, the stucker you get. And it's counterintuitive that the way to get out of this mess is to relax a bit, and then the cuffs come off.
Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.